Conversations with historian Jack Buchanan about largely unknown American patriot leaders in the Southern campaigns of the American Revolution. Hello, and welcome to the Real American Revolution, a multimedia program to discuss with noted authors and historians what really happened before, during, and after America's War for Independence. Now, my name is Randy Flood, and today my guest is historian Jack Buchanan. Jack is one of our nation's foremost historians on the American Revolution and is affectionately known as the Dean of the Southern Campaigns. His books of the Revolution include the prize-winning The Road to Valley Forge, How Washington Built the Army That Won the Revolution, and the widely acclaimed The Road to Guilford Courthouse, The American Revolution in the Carolinas. Also, The Road to Charleston, Nathaniel Greene and the American Revolution. Jack's most recent book is The Battle of Musgrove's Mill, 1780. So today, Jack and I will be discussing the third of three American patriot commanders who fought in the American Revolution and are largely unknown by most Americans: John Sevier, Isaac Shelby, and William Richardson Davie. So, Jack, welcome to the Real American Revolution.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you for inviting me. Pleasure.
Well, Jack, today let's talk about William Richardson Davie, and I might provide a little bit of background as in the other profiles that we've discussed. William Richardson Davie was born on the 20th of June, 1756. He died on the 29th of November, 1820. He was a military officer during the Revolutionary War, and he was also the 10th governor of North Carolina. And interestingly enough, he was also the founder of the University of North Carolina. Davie was born in England. His family immigrated to the Waxhaw region of South Carolina. He graduated from the College of New Jersey, which of course today is known as Princeton, in 1776, and he began to study law in Salisbury, North Carolina. During the Revolutionary War in 1779, Davie raised and trained a local cavalry troop in Salisbury that was eventually attached to the Legion of General Casimir Pulaski, a prominent cavalry leader during the American Revolution. Now, promoted to the rank of major, he commanded a brigade of cavalry and led a charge against British forces at Stono Ferry, South Carolina. Wounded in the battle, Davie returned to Salisbury to recuperate and study law. He continued to serve as a cavalry leader during the war, particularly as the British turned their attention to the South, where they focused on suppressing the rebellion in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. But except for North Carolinians, however, few Americans know anything about William Richardson Davie. Jack, what kind of a leader was William Richardson Davie? What made him unique?
Well, one thing, he, along with the others, had, what I've said about them, command presence. But he was also quite different. He was a very urbane, polished, well-educated man of good family. And after the war, even though he was a member of the Constitutional Convention and voted to put it into effect, he began to loathe the democratic tendencies of democracy, the leveling tendencies of democracy. He began to loathe that. But he was an excellent small unit combat commander.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the battles that he participated in was pretty significant. Once again, people don't know about it, but he participated in this battle of Hanging Rock, South Carolina, on the 6th of August, 1780, where he served under the command of General Thomas Sumter.
Right.
Can you tell us something about that battle and what Davie and Sumter did?
Well, it was a British strong point, and the garrison were American Tories or loyalists in the western part of South Carolina. They were positioned behind a creek and a ravine, and Sumter, who had an uncanny ability to raise men, was a poor tactician. His favorite tactic was the frontal assault, and he intended to assault over this creek, over this ravine against the garrison at Hanging Rock. According to Davie, now Davie wrote the Recollections of William Richardson Davie, which is available, a valuable primary source. It's available from the state of North Carolina. According to Davie, the guides, either out of, as he wrote, either ignorance or fear, angled to the left, and eventually what it became a flanking movement. And Davie's troop of cavalry was foremost in this flanking movement, and the flanking movement practically destroyed the Tory Prince of Wales regiment, and the battle was won really by this flanking movement. Yeah, that was the
Uh-huh.
Battle of Hanging Rock. Uh, the victory fell well. It was a victory, but then it all fell apart. The not Davie's men, but Sumter's men uh, saw all the booze and the food and the
Uh-huh.
belongings in the camp, and they got roaring drunk
So
and looted
they plundered the
and
camp then.
plundered the camp. Yeah, that was Hanging Rock.
Oh my. Well, a month later, on the 26th of September, 1780, Davies' really most significant military engagement during the entire war occurred in Charlotte, North Carolina. What happened in Charlotte?
Well, the British the British Army was advancing under Lord Cornwallis was advancing on Charlotte, and in the advance uh, was the famous British Legion, made up of Northern loyalists that was led by the equally famous British commander Bannister Tarleton. But Tarleton was down with a fever, probably malaria. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Malaria was rampant, and the Legion was taken over by his second in command, Major George Hanger, who was a firearms expert, but not much of a tactical commander. And he was in the advance, charged, and Davie had stationed his men behind a wall, and Hanger charged, and at about 60 yards, 60, 70 yards, Davie gave the order to fire, and that brought that charge to a crashing halt with that sustained with that volley. And then uh, the British moved in with light infantry, uh, and Davie really proved himself excellent at stationing his men, and then when the time came, getting them to move out. Uh, and that's what the Battle of Charlotte became. He couldn't stop the British. He couldn't
Uh-huh.
stop the British Army from taking over Charlotte, but he delayed them, wrought damage upon them, and when the time came, he withdrew his men. It turned out that he really knew how to deploy men in a combat situation, as well as this command presence that he had.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is his tactics attributable to the I guess what they call the hornet's nest in the Battle of Charlotte? They frequently refer to the Battle of Charlotte as the hornet's nest, I guess because of the tactics that Davy used against Cornwallis, stinging the troops and perhaps that
I, I,
strategy with the
I'm
wall.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I've
don't.
seen that
No.
written in certain areas. It's
Yeah.
referenced as the Battle of the
Could be. I
Hornet's
just
Nest.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know it was known as the Hornet's Nest
yeah.
because after the battle, uh, and Davy had to withdraw from Charlotte. Um, the British took over Charlotte. To get supplies, they'd have to send out foraging parties.
Okay,
Those foraging parties going out always met resistance
okay.
from Davy's men. Plus, a lone British courier, a dead man,
Uh-huh.
a dead man. Yeah,
Well, that would explain the hornet's nest
that explains the
definition.
that explains the hornet's nest. Yes.
Well, Well, at the end of that year in 1780, in early December, of course, we know that General Nathaniel Greene took command of the Southern Department. And shortly thereafter, I think it was a turn of the year there in 1781, Greene approached Davie with an important request, a very unique assignment, taking a field commander and asking him to do something else. What was that Greene asked Davie to do?
One of the most, to me, amusing incidents of the Revolutionary War. Um, Greene's aged commissary general or quartermaster had retired. And of course, the quartermaster general or the commissary general is a logistician. He takes care of logistics. He gets supplies. No army can exist without supplies. And he asked Davy to take it over. Well, Davy squirmed, wiggled, pleaded not to be taken out of combat command, you know. And uh, and one of his arguments was, I know nothing of dollars or accounts. And Green countered and said, that's all right. There are no dollars in the treasury, no accounts. And this goes back to he did today. Oh, and Davy finally relented, took over as commissary general, did a wonderful job, but he made Green promise it was just for a certain uh, length of time. Well, it turned out to be for the duration of the war. Yeah. And so, and what this does, this goes back to when Green was at Valley Forge, a combat commander under Washington, and Washington made him quartermaster general. And he did the same. He pleaded not to be made quartermaster general. He was, and he did a brilliant job. But he said, I am taken out of the line of splendor, by which he meant combat command. And then he also wrote, nobody ever heard of a quartermaster in history. And then he turned around and he did the same thing to Davy.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess he was a pretty good role model.
Yeah,
Been there, done that, so to speak, I
right,
guess, right?
right, right.
Gosh. Well, after the Revolutionary War, Davie was a traveling circuit court lawyer and was elected on multiple occasions to the North Carolina House of Commons, they called it. In 1798, he was elected governor of North Carolina. He did attend, as you mentioned earlier, the Constitutional Convention in 1787, and he advocated for the ratification of the United States Constitution at North Carolina's ratifying conventions in 1788 and 1789. In later years, Davie was active in Federalist politics, advocates for the Constitution, and also in the North Carolina General Assembly, introducing legislation to establish the University of North Carolina. What do you think William Richardson Davie's legacy is, and what should people remember about him?
Well, not only as a hero of the revolution, uh, but for all these things you just mentioned after the war, uh, being choosing to ratify the Constitution, becoming governor, uh, introducing the legislation to establish the University of North Carolina. But he was truly one of the heroes of the revolution, one of these today unknown men without whom, as with Sevier, as with Isaac Shelby, as with so many others, the revolution wouldn't have been won without them. It takes more than the Washingtons, the Greens, etc., to win a revolution. It takes all these men who become unknown as time goes on to win a revolution. That's his legacy.
That's an interesting one. I know that growing up, I think it was in our fourth grade that all of us in Virginia knew, of course, of Washington and George Mason and Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. We knew nothing of these other leaders in the American Revolution, with the exception of perhaps, Benjamin Franklin. But I presume the same was true of Tennessee, where they knew a lot about John Sevier or Kentucky, where they knew a lot about Isaac Shelby, or
Yeah,
North Carolina, where they knew a lot about William Richardson Davie.
yeah.
But I don't know if it's true today. But in fact, I think it's important that we do remember when we look at the big picture of the American Revolution, a lot of these unsung heroes who really were heroes in their own right and who made a huge difference in terms of America gaining its war for winning its independence against Great Britain.
They put their lives on the line.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, Jack, thank you so much again for joining me today.
Another pleasure, I tell you.
Well, to our viewers and listeners, I've been talking with historian Jack Buchanan about three uniquely unknown American patriot leaders who fought in the Revolutionary War in the South and the Southern campaigns in particular, John Sevier, Isaac Shelby, and William Richardson Davie. Today, we talked about William Richardson Davie of North Carolina. Now, my name is Randy Flood. Join us again next time for another exciting interview with an outstanding historian about the real American Revolution. So long for now.